I lived alone, and in this remote location, we don't have cable, so the only option is satellite TV. It was a humid summer night in July, and the TV was acting up, so I needed to go out and readjust the satellite. Like usual, I took a flashlight and a gun with me. When I went outside, it was unusually quiet. So silent that it was unnerving. I brushed the thought away and went to the dish, which is in the corner of my yard. I got to work, making sure all of the wires were all right and pointing to a different angle. Suddenly, I heard a small snap of a stick to my left and turned the flashlight to that direction, and I saw a creature standing there. I got a good look at it for what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only about 10 seconds. I slowly backed off and ran back to the house and locked all the doors and windows. This creature was unlike anything I had ever seen before. When I shined the light at it, the first thing I saw was its head. It has cropped ears that pointed upwards. Its snout was narrower than a bear's and longer, and I could make out large teeth pointing out from the jaw. Its eyes were a deep red shade that seemed to reflect the light I was pointing at it. The body was muscular and huge. It had long arms that appeared to be longer than its legs, broad shoulders that tapered into a skinnier waist. It was slightly crouched when I saw it, with one hand wrapped around a small tree. I could make out the legs, which looked similar to a dog's legs. It had obvious hocks, even with the crouched position. It was about my height, which is 6 foot. Standing up to full height, this creature could easily be 7.5 feet tall. The fur was black and thicker around the neck and chest, and the bottom had significantly less. I don't know if it was aggressive or not. What I know is I had a feeling of dread unlike anything I've ever experienced. Was it just observing me or stalking me? For a creature this large, it was deceivingly silent. It had got within 15 yards of me without me noticing. All I knew was I needed to get out of there and not find out. I don't live on the property anymore, but after the event, I never had another face-to-face encounter. But I would hear sounds in the woods I couldn't explain. They would start off relatively quiet and work their way up to furious howls and screams, then back to quiet again. I'm not 100% sure if it was the same creature, but I don't want to find out. I never believed in the supernatural until I was 18 and me and my friends played with a Ouija board. But that's a story for another time. But after that event, I'm a full-on believer. Now, on with my actual sighting. I live in a very rural part of Mississippi. I believe my town has around 250 people in it. Everybody knows everybody. Weird things have happened before, like animals being slaughtered or going missing, that sort of thing. Naturally, we always chalked it up to coyotes or other critters. I'm an avid hunter, so I was heading out to the woods with my bow, a fully decked out Matthews Creed. I had got out a little earlier than usual, so it was still pretty dark. I've never minded the woods before, so all I planned on doing was relaxing in my stand for a while, as I didn't really feel like stalking anything that day. It wasn't too far away from daylight, so the birds and other wildlife are starting to make their morning calls. Usually pretty peaceful. I swear to God, in the span of seconds, everything in that patch of woods just shut up at the exact same time. Dead silence. It didn't even try to be subtle. That's what scared me. So, naturally, I froze and just listened for anything. My first thought was that something's out here with me, and that started to freak me out even more. Then I started to think maybe it's just a bear or a bobcat, which I was still terrified to meet up with, but at least it gave me a logical answer. I figured I could hear a bear coming, but I knew big cats were renowned for stalking people without them knowing. I decided to keep moving towards my stand, post up, and just point my bow down the tree. After what seemed like forever, I finally made it. I shuffled up the stand, pulled my knife out just in case, and listened. Dawn was breaking now, which made me feel better. Still no sounds of wildlife, which was getting more and more eerie. Now, my stand is perched on the side of a creek. The creek wasn't very deep, like maybe to the top of your ankle. About the only sound I could hear was that slight noise of the running water. Then I heard something to my right, and it's running fast. I instantly raise my bow and wait. It's getting louder and louder and closer and closer. I almost screamed when I saw this thing. It literally looked like something out of Dog Soldiers, only more muscular. This thing busted through the brush, ran down the slope through the creek, then disappeared on the other side. I've seen a lot in my life, let me tell you, but I was shaking like a newborn baby. I didn't ease off my drawstring for about 10 minutes, which is a very long time to hold a bow. This thing was huge. Easily 6'5", 6'7", 250 pounds. I've seen bears and the like before, but they don't look or move like that. Anyways, after that, the sun really started to show and the birds started chirping. I had calmed myself down, so I got out of there in a hurry. While I was terrified at the time, it's definitely one of the coolest memories to look back on. I'm just glad I made it out of there, and I'm gonna move my stand and hunt somewhere else. In March 2015, I woke up around 3 a.m. I have no idea why. Usually I wake up to drink water or use the bathroom, but I didn't need to do either one of those. Anyways, I was living in Southern California at the time, and where I lived there was my neighborhood and just wilderness. There was nothing beyond my neighborhood for miles, just land. I had always been into the supernatural, but I don't think I really believed it until this experience. Before I went to sleep, I opened up my window because it was hot, and I had my curtains open and my shades open and pulled up to make sure air was getting in. So at 3 a.m. I woke up and just looked out my window, which was next to my bed, and I thought I saw someone standing at the crosswalk in the street. I was just thinking, that's so weird. Usually, we don't have runners or early morning walkers until about 4:45. So I got up and went to my window so I could get a closer look. And what I saw, I will never forget. This thing was standing, but its legs were bent, and it had some white fur covering the body. However, I could still see some skin. It was black and hunched over, and its face looked like some sort of dog's. If it was standing straight up, I would have said it was about 7 or 8 feet tall. Now, mind you, this was at 3 a.m., so at first I'm just like, oh, you're hallucinating, go back to sleep to myself. But I was literally paralyzed and couldn't take my eyes off this creature. Its nose and ears just looked so similar to a dog or some sort of wolf or coyote. Where I lived, coyotes were pretty prevalent, but they never really came into the neighborhood. As you can tell, I was just completely shocked and nervous, and as I was about to shut my window, this thing turned its head and stared straight at me. It was standing directly under a streetlight, so I could see its features very clearly, and its eyes were so black, but somehow they were shining to where you could really see them, and it was like they were staring right into my soul. That did it for me. I slammed my window shut, pulled down the blinds, closed the curtains, and jumped into bed while pulling the covers over my face. I didn't go back to sleep that night. My sighting took place around 11:30 p.m. on November 4th, 2009. I work for the local 73 toll road in Newport Beach, California, and lately we've had some construction on the surrounding roads for the past few months. I'm a third shift manager, and every night driving home I take the exact same route at pretty much the exact same time. On this night, I was coming off the exit from the 133 road connector. I'll never forget what I saw. While stopped at the stoplight, I saw a group of 3 large, 4-legged creatures dash out from the trees along the road. I started second-guessing myself and tried to convince myself I was seeing things. I made the left turn at the light, and while the speed limit was still 40 miles per hour at this part, I looked up and almost peed myself. Those 3 beasts were running upright. The wolves, which seemed to be the most logical guess, were about 6.5 feet tall and looked like they easily weighed 250 to 275 pounds each. They had snouts and mouths that almost could be expressive, being able to smile and frown. The fur was dark, although there wasn't enough light to tell if it was dark brown or black. My car being a 6-cylinder, it could really get going if need be. I was going 45 miles per hour and the giant wolves were keeping up with ease. I then literally put the pedal to the metal and sped up to 70. I was sweating profusely and having a panic attack. As I sped up to 70, the wolves stopped following me. Considering I was about to enter a high traffic part of the road, the wolf in front seemed to have stopped on a dime and watched me drive off. I didn't hear any howls before or after the sighting. I proceeded to head home as soon as possible. I told my girlfriend what I saw, and she said my imagination was running wild. I also told my coworkers the next day following the sighting, but nobody believes me to this day. I know I'm not crazy, and I know what I saw. I still have been taking the same route home every night, and have not run into anything since that night of the sighting. Who knows what they actually were? All I know is I don't want to run into them again.